This is a true story, one that has inspired people around the world with its testament to resilience, faith, and the will to survive. The teenager at its heart is Aldi Novel Adilang, an 18-year-old from Indonesia who spent 49 days adrift in the vast Pacific Ocean in 2018. Before the drift, Aldi grew up in a small village in North Sulawesi, where many families made their living from fishing. To help support his parents and younger siblings, he took on work as a lamp keeper at the age of 16. The job involved manning a rompong, a traditional floating raft equipped with bright lamps designed to attract fish for nearby fishing boats. Anchored about 125 kilometers off the coast, the raft was his home for weeks at a time. He'd usually stay out for 2 to 3 weeks before being picked up and relieved by another keeper. In mid-July 2018, he'd been on the rompong for just over 2 weeks when the weather took a sudden turn. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and fierce winds, stronger than any he'd experienced before, began to batter the raft. Despite his efforts to secure the moorings with ropes he had on hand, the storm's force was too great. The line snapped with a sharp crack, and the rompong was torn free from its anchor, sending it drifting away into the open ocean. Days at sea. At first, Aldi held on to hope that he'd be spotted quickly. He had a small stock of supplies, a few kilograms of rice, some drinking water, instant noodles, and a gas stove with a limited amount of fuel. But as the hours stretched into days and no boats appeared on the horizon, his provisions dwindled fast. Within a week, the rice and noodles were gone, and the last drop of fresh water was consumed. Faced with dehydration and starvation, he had to act fast to survive. He used pieces of wood from the raft's structure to build a small fire pit, catching fish and sea turtles with his bare hands or a makeshift spear he fashioned from bamboo. To cook them, he burned more wood from the raft, carefully rationing it so he wouldn't destroy his only floating refuge. For water, he devised a simple filter. He'd soak his clothes in seawater, then wring out the liquid and let it evaporate slightly in the sun to reduce the salt content, drinking the remaining moisture. The mental toll was just as heavy as the physical one. Stretched out on the endless blue, with nothing but sky and water in every direction, loneliness and despair often overwhelmed him. He later shared that there were nights when waves crashed over the raft, soaking him to the bone, and he'd lie awake wondering if he'd ever see land or his family again. At his lowest point, he even considered ending his life by jumping into the ocean. But then he'd reach for the small Bible his parents had given him before he left home, reading passages aloud and singing the worship songs he'd learned in his village church. His faith became his anchor. He'd pray for help each morning as the sun rose, and find comfort in imagining his family waiting for him. Over the weeks, more than 10 ships passed within sight, but none stopped. He'd wave frantically, hold up pieces of brightly colored cloth, and even light small fires to signal for help, only to watch them sail away, seemingly unaware of his presence. Each time, his hope would fade a little more, but he refused to give up. The rescue. On the morning of August 31st, nearly 7 weeks after he'd drifted away, Aldi spotted another vessel on the horizon, a large Panamanian tanker called the MV Arpeggio, en route from Mexico to China. This time, he pulled out all stops. He lit a large fire using the last of his dry wood, waved every piece of fabric he could find, and shouted as loud as his hoarse voice would allow. Thankfully, the tanker's crew saw his signals. The ship's captain, noticing the small raft and the smoke rising from it, ordered the vessel to slow down and launch a rescue boat. When the crew pulled Aldi aboard, they were shocked by his condition. He was severely underweight, dehydrated, and his skin was covered in salt sores. But he was alive. The MV Arpeggio diverted course to Guam, where Aldi received medical care and was reunited with Indonesian embassy officials. Within days, he was on a flight back to North Sulawesi, where his family, who had long feared he was dead, waited with tears and open arms at the airport. After the ordeal. In the years since his rescue, Aldi has become a symbol of survival and hope in Indonesia and beyond. He has shared his story at churches, schools, and public events, emphasizing how his faith carried him through the darkest moments. He has also worked with local organizations to improve safety measures for rompong keepers, advocating for better communication equipment and emergency supplies to prevent similar ordeals from happening again.